On the way home, I was listening to, I told you about this podcast before. It's the Spooked Podcast. Yeah. It's real life, or it's supposed to be true stories told by the people that experienced them. Well, it's really good because the stories are interesting. They're very extreme at times. Ooh. Where you're questioning, is this real or not? Is this really, like, did this really happen? Or is this person making this stuff up? Because it's such a crazy story. But then also the show is produced so well that, so it's like if somebody called me up and was like, tell me your ghost story. And I'm like, yeah, okay, so this happened and this happened and that happened. And then they put dramatic music and sound effects to it and stuff. So I bet the people that tell the stories are surprised when they even hear the playback and they hear it on the show and they're like, damn, that sounds great.
Look, you know? One of our podcasts, the sound quality was such shit. It was, it's one that's coming out in November, and I don't want to.
I like how you're like, it sounded like shit.
It's coming out.
You know, you guys all get to experience it. We don't give up on shit.
That's right.
They're really good stories, and we don't want to let go of them.
I don't want to let go of it. It turned out to be such a good podcast. But what you just said is so funny because I was like, I wonder, like, if I should go so far as to put background music just to kind of cut through all of that background noise. Maybe you won't hear it so much by just be like, and, you know, I'm telling a story and then there's like soft piano playing or, you know, maybe lightning crashing in some spots.
It sure as hell works for that show. It's done really well, and it makes the stories like that much more spooky and stuff with the sound effects and the music. But so it has a season 1, and then it took a decently long break, in my opinion, and it just came out with season 2 like in August, and I'm just now catching up with it.
Okay.
I get stuck in like an audiobook,
yeah,
Game of Thrones, and it just takes me a month to listen to all of that, and I forget about my podcast and I have to go back to them. Anyways, the host of this show on Spooked, his name's like Glynn Washington, I think is his name. And no, Washington's his last name, but he has a really dramatic, deep voice, and he's so good at talking like so dramatic, and he's perfect for the podcast because he makes it spookier and he makes it intense. So they have commercials. I never even really noticed that they had commercials, so I don't know if this is a new thing, but I noticed it on the way home. He's doing a commercial for underwear, I'm pretty sure.
With the deep, dramatic voice.
Yeah, his deep, dramatic voice is going on, and I'm all like, yeah. What's he talking about? Did he just say soft bra? All of a sudden talking about the softest bra you'll ever feel. But he's talking like that.
That's creepy.
Like, I'm sure he's like, do we not have any other sponsors? Like, because...
That's so funny.
No, I think it was men's and women's clothes.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't even catch on it was an ad until he said something about soft bras. Really funny. For that moment alone, you should check it out.
I kind of want to, honestly. I need some soft bras, so maybe I should check him out just for sponsors. Well, would you like to do a podcast?
Yeah. What's this podcast called again?
It's called Creatures of the Night, and I'm Chris.
And I'm Wendy. I was talking to somebody at work today and telling them that I was podcasting tonight. I was wondering if I should practice reading through my story because you said something about practicing yours. And I was like, I've never done that. And I was like, bet it would sound a lot better if I did. If it wasn't like I was reading something for the very first time. And I was like, what's this word? You know, even though I wrote it, I typed it up, I mean. Anyways, she said something like, do you want to read it to me? And I was like, no, because she's like, are you afraid I won't listen to it when it comes out? Probably not going to come out for like a month, so I'm sure you'll forget this moment. She said, yeah, and I'm sure it's not going to sound the same. You can read it to me now, but with the commentary that you two have, it's going to come out totally different. And I was like, yeah, I don't even know why I waste my time reading this. Because I did actually end up reading through my story, but not to her.
Okay.
And I read the first few pages and everything seemed like it was going great. Yep. I got to like the second to last page and all of a sudden I was like, what am I trying to say?
Shit.
Did I start to get tired and was like, cut, copy, paste. This makes no sense. Who cares? And I was like, I'm just going to have to, like, at this point, start skimming through the page and then just telling you from memory because, you know, I know the story. So
this story is such a big story. I could go on for a lot longer than what I chose to go on for.
And then just to tell the viewers and you, because maybe you don't realize this, you and I share a YouTube page. So I'm on it quite often, and obviously you are too. And every time I log in on my computer at home and I go to YouTube to look at anything, it's logged in under your sign on, our sign on, whatever. And I see the recently watched stuff, our suggestions, and I start to be like, uh-oh, this is a way of like seeing what she might be doing.
Yep.
So I tried to quickly like, don't do that, Wendy, but also got excited. So I was like, ooh, can I guess what it is? So tell me.
Yes. So you might already know what I'm going to talk about because I did go on YouTube and I looked at a lot of shit over the week. The place that I'm going to talk about has been given many names over the years. Some simply refer to it as the most haunted place in the world.
That is super fucking vague.
All right. Others call it the most evil place in the world. It has even been nicknamed the Island of Terror. Nothing yet?
No. I think I know what story you're telling, but I've never heard any of these.
All of these names, honestly, they sound like names that would be given to like a cheesy haunted house, like
right.
for Halloween.
I mean, like, this could be
the most evil place in the world.
Like just somebody walked up and said that, one time, and they're like, yeah, that sounds good.
The locals have a name for it too, and that one kind of makes sense based on the storyline, but those other ones, I think people are just being silly. The name the locals give it is the Island of Ghosts, and claim that hundreds of angry spirits remain trapped there on this island. For those brave travelers that have managed to actually explore the island, return to tell stories of feeling negative energy, hearing voices, and seeing shadows. They say a heavy sense of sorrow and suffering permeates from the island to this day. This is the story of Poveglia Island.
I saw this, and that's why I was like, no, don't look, Wendy. Yes, look. Oh my. Because I would never choose to do this one myself because you're just so much better at research and like delivery and pronouncing shit. So I was like, I'm so glad she got to this one before me.
You know what though? I think we're going to have to come up with a system. I think we're going to have to, we have to have an intermediary because like, when I'm doing this, I'm like, Wendy's going to do this. Wendy, we're going to do this call. We're going to have the two stories, and I'm going to start saying it, and Wendy's going to be like, oh my God, that's exactly how my beginning goes. And wait a second, is she doing Poveglia Island too? Like, we're going to have an intermediate. We're going to have to pass notes through somebody here eventually where they're like, yeah, you can do that story. Wendy hasn't done it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be somebody here to help us out.
No, I like the idea of just being surprised and being like, you fucking bitch, that's my story.
No, the thing.
I also have a backup story. Like, I have my story.
Oh, you do?
That we're going to record later. And I have a backup story. So if we were ever in that situation, I'd just be like, well, scrap that shit. Wasted a week of my life.
Oh my God. That's the thing. Like this one, I dedicated a lot of time to because it's such a big story, but I tried to veer off from the story and start writing my next story, and I couldn't. All I wanted to do was finish this story. So I don't know if I'll ever have a backup story. I'm going to have to if you do the same story as me, I'll start telling like the story of Waverly, from memory, or, Moundsville, because I at least know one of those stories pretty well.
That's not a terrible thing. We have experiences and locations. We've never been to Poveglia Island. I'm not saying it like, see, that's why I wasn't going to do the story. Never mind. I was about to try again. Then you would just see me sit here and struggle.
It's a tough one. Different people saying it all kinds of different ways. So I don't know. I think Poveglia is the way.
That is.
But I've heard people saying Poveglia.
No, that's wrong. That's got to be wrong. That doesn't sound right at all. All right. Tell me this amazing story. And by the way, the name I know this island by is Hell on Earth, of course, because that's what Zach Bagans yells.
Yes, it is.
Very dramatically. There's another drama queen.
Right. So I wanted to rewatch this episode before I got a chance to finish my story. But like you can see the episodes on YouTube, but they're like high pitched. Look, I know they don't sound like that, but it throws off the whole thing. And the image is very kind of distorted and small. So you're really not seeing saying anything. Or I could have paid to watch it. I'm like, man, fuck this. It's got to be on DirecTV somewhere. Nope. Every other episode that they've ever filmed, plus a few that I haven't seen, they were there, but not Poveglia Island. So I didn't get to go back and rewatch it. But when I was looking through Ghost Adventure stuff for Poveglia Island, I have never in my life seen this Aaron's vlog session of videos that he did while they were there. And that was like the best lunchtime I've ever had. I spent watching all of his videos. That really made my day. And I don't know if you ever looked at the one that I had sent you.
Yeah,
I was
did.
like, this is the best. Like, if I ever need a pick-me-up, Aaron is dancing in front of a mirror. It was awesome.
Yeah. Just the facial expressions.
Yes,
and stuff.
they are. They're really funny. So now back to this very dramatic and sad story. Poveglia is one of the small 166 islets in the Venice Lagoon off of the eastern coast of northern Italy. So basically, islets are just really, really small islands.
Okay.
The little island was first mentioned in print in the early 5th century as a safe haven from invasions by Alaric the Goth and Attila the Hun during the decline of the Roman Empire. Because the many small islands in the lagoon could easily be defended, military forces left them alone. However, Poveglia had probably been populated long before then, as historical records indicate. A group of Proto-Italians, the Eugani, first inhabited the Veneto region as early as 2000 BCE, which is before Common Era.
Yeah, we talked about that in another podcast, and then I think I was re-listening to it, and I asked my kids about it, and I was like, what is that? What is that thing they say now? And so, yes, I was like, damn, I wish we would have just Googled it.
Yes. BCE, before Common Era, replaces BC, which was before Christ. And around 864 CE, or Common Era, which replaced AD, the governor, or Doge, I'm not sure if it's a Doge or Doge, was killed. But basically, he's just an elected official.
Okay.
And 200 of his slaves fled to the island and presumably led pretty quiet lives.
Oh, they were like, let's get the fuck out of here before the next guy comes in.
Pretty much.
It's like, now you're my slaves. You know, they were like, we can go have. So it was like a secluded island, and some people were living out there before.
Right.
They even used it as like a military kind of like post.
Yeah, they were just chilling on this beautiful island. I mean,
I would. That sounds cool to me.
It does sound cool.
I don't want to live there now. Because I like to keep my soul, but, you know, tell me how it got so dark.
During the Chiagogia War with Genoa that began in 1379, officials forced the residents of Poveglia Island to move to a different island in the Venetian lagoon. They built the octagonal fort and turned Poveglia into a military outpost armed with naval artillery to strictly control the lagoon. I have like a cat hair on my microphone. I know you can't hear it, but I can see it. It's really driving me insane. For 2 centuries, the island stayed unpopulated despite government efforts. In the 1500s, the government offered the island to a group of monks, and they noped right on out of that shit and totally refused the offer.
Why? Why did they not want it?
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to ask me. I mean, it was the 1500s. And I'm not sure what else was being required of the monks in order for them to just, like, take over the island. Or if the monks were just like, no, thanks, we're all set. I don't have any additional details on that offer. And I even looked into this group of monks. It's not like they're just like, no to Italy. Like, they spread out. They're getting around. I have a webpage still open of, like, different locations where they spread out to Poland, Spain. Like, they're just kind of all over the place. So it wasn't about that.
Maybe they felt like it was going to limit them. Maybe the city was trying to like simmer them down and like, no, why don't y'all take this piece of land? And they're like, no, I can't get back into the city and do any kind of work and stuff like that. No, we're cool. We like where we're at. They must have had a better piece of property that they were just trying to take away from them.
I mean, from looking at their history, they seem to have done pretty good with their couple of branches of, I'm going to be saying it wrong. I know there aren't any monks out there that currently listen to us, so I couldn't be about to offend anybody, but their
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Monkism. There's a monk out there right now very offended.
I listen to the fucking show. I bet he doesn't say that.
No. Despite their failed deal with the monks, the government did eventually find a purpose for Poveglia.
What was that purpose?
You know what? It's funny that you asked. I'm going to get into that.
Good. Because so far it doesn't really sound like it should be the most evil place on earth.
I mean, there was some wars and stuff that happened there, but I skipped over a lot of historical stuff that it's not juicy. It's
boring stuff. Yeah, it's not juicy.
Right.
It's not the meat and potatoes.
I'm about to get to the right.
Evil.
The evil meat and potatoes are coming right up. The first major plague that struck Italy began in 1347 in Sicily and had spread to Venice in 1 year. Roughly half the Venetian population succumbed to death, and this taught the Venetians a great deal about the movement of the disease. They deduced. That's right. I'm bringing it back. I couldn't wait.
When I get my cricket for Christmas, I'm making you that t-shirt.
Deduced.
It'll just say, I deduced. It'll be like, what?
So they deduced through observation how the disease spread and how people and ships were introducing the plague to the area. Officials realized that they needed to separate the sick and dead plague victims from healthy individuals, which prompted them to set up large burial pits for the corpses at 2 locations outside of the main city. The number of dead bodies were piling up so rapidly that the 2 pits soon became overwhelmed. In order to manage the overflow, the city began to transport masses of dead bodies to 2 different islands in the lagoon. I've got their names here, and I might end up butchering these. It's Sant-Erasmo and the locality of San Martino de Strada. I tried looking into those places just to see if they were haunted and that we could just go and get on them. It does seem like a lot of the islets you can get onto, just definitely not the one that I'm writing the story on. So keep that in the back of your mind. If we go to Italy, there are a lot of places that we can explore legally.
Where were these people's families? Like, was it just too much for them to keep up with? It just seems so sad that
it was very heartbreaking and very, very sad and very dramatic for the families involved. From some of the things that I read, and I did not even put that in my story because I like that, we kind of have a bit of a comedy thing going on here, and it is such a dark and unfortunate part of history. There is a lot of sadness here, and I know I am making jokes and stuff just to try and keep it light, but it was a pretty horrible thing for the families to go through and the people that were involved. It just it was bad.
Yeah.
By the early 1400s, the Venetians had invented the concept of the lazaretto.
What are we talking about?
It is an institution or hospital designed to quarantine those that were in fact sick and those that were just thought to be sick. Lazaretto Vecchio, a small island in the lagoon, which is just a stone's throw away from Poveglia, was home to the very first lazaretto. Venice had some of the strictest sanitary laws anywhere, and even though they didn't understand how germs and infections worked, they knew that isolating sick travelers was an effective way to prevent the severity of outbreaks. It was Venice that coined the term quarantine, which was derived from the duration travelers were required to stay at the lazaretto before they could be issued a clean bill of health and continue on their way.
Well, that doesn't seem smart, though. They're putting them at the hospital with sick people. I'm assuming they had like a hold area, and then they have like the sick bay, and that they were separate. They weren't trying to get you sick, but they were trying to make sure you weren't sick. But still, would scare the shit out of me if I came into a country and they were like, you got to go to the sick hospital for a little while while we make sure you're not sick. No, that's how you get sick.
Right. They understood that they needed to keep the sick people away from the healthy people. But when you were on Poveglia, and it seemed like, regardless of whether you were part of being quarantined from the other sick people, you were deemed sick. You're sick. You're on the sick island with the sick people, so you're all fucking sick. So they just kept you all in quarantine for 40 days. And I guess if you didn't die, then you were okay to go back to the island. Now, I don't know what they did to you before you actually went off to the island, because, I mean, I'm sure that they fumigated things that would leave the island. So, I mean, how could they say, okay, you're all set to go back to the island if they were so strict on their policies without doing like one more like rigorous check? I don't know. I don't know what that rigorous check would have been, but I'm sure it wasn't comfortable, whatever it was that they were doing to you.
No. I imagine it's all pretty barbaric. So
yeah,
it was for the good of the people. They were doing the best they could, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's the idea here. I mean, at this time, they were just trying to keep everybody healthy. during the following epidemics of the plague in the 1570s and the 1630s, various islands, including Poveglia, served as quarantines and dumping grounds for massive amounts of dead bodies. Anyone appearing with even the mildest of symptoms would be quickly stripped away from their families, shipped off to the island, and the doctors there were sporting those super horrifying long-nosed looking masks back then, the plague masks.
They are so creepy.
They are.
I want one.
That's so funny because while I'm reading the story, I'm like, I have to have one. So the noses of those masks would have been stuffed with herbs and straw. And the idea was that it would filter sickness from the air that they breathed. So even though they were creepy as fuck, like, it had some sort of a purpose. It had like a good purpose for the doctors. They thought that the aromatherapy would help to keep them healthy.
Imagine it shielded them from the smell as well.
I mean,
I'm not saying that to be rude. I thought I've read that before. I thought I read that about those masks before, that it was like, for one, like so that they didn't smell the rotting death around them. And then also they felt the herbs would protect them from it.
I mean, you just gave me another idea for this mask. I mean, I need something just like this for when I'm cleaning out the cat litter box, because I need to be shielded from that smell too.
Tell me about it.
So just for a quick visual recap, you got sick. Immediately, you're being ripped away from your loved ones and shipped off to this island. You're surrounded by dozens of confused people that have just experienced the same thing. Everyone is fucking scared. And just as your boat rounds the corner, you catch the sight of these smoke clouds billowing out from the tiny island. And as you get closer, you start to see the doctors all standing there along the shoreline waiting for you. Their lanky, wax-covered cloaks and freakishly pale masks with long beaks. They're tapping their plague canes against their hands menacingly.
I do not understand the purpose of these canes at all. I mean, like, I can see one guy has a cane and he's always using it to point instead of his hand and saying, like, go over there. That's the entrance to the gate. He's the one that always carries that stick around. But why do they all have sticks? That seems odd. Who started that fashion trend there?
I know.
The cloaks, I get it.
It's part of their scrub. Right.
They're covering their clothes so that they don't get anything on their clothes.
Right.
The masks are creepy as fuck. I'd love to know who came up with that design, but they have a purpose. The billowing smoke, not comforting at all.
No.
And I think, I mean, you add that, and then if they had never seen the doctors like before in town or heard about it and how they dress, all of this would be like surreal. But the canes are just completely unnecessary.
It's very unnecessary. But like, so the smoke clouds, that's from the other plague victims that are being burned on the island.
Right.
And then you've got these alien-like creatures standing there. You've never seen this outfit, this mask, and then they're all holding those like those weird directional canes. I mean, fuck this.
It's intimidating as fuck. That's not comforting. Like, welcome to the hospital. I hope you get better. We're here to help. Nope. That's not good. Why do you have a stick in your hand?
They did. The reason why they had the sticks, it was because they had those masks on. They weren't able to really communicate. So they felt that the sticks would help for directional purposes.
Yeah, and I guess it would be hard because the mask goes so far in front of their face that you can't hear them. But you got arms, don't you? Like, they work like sticks. You know, you just point.
I don't know.
But that's fine. That's fine. Whatever. I mean, it just sounds like you're hurting sheep, and that seems degrading.
So their coats were covered in like a waxy substance, and I don't know if that was thought to help them, stay away from the diseases or whatever. So moving their arms around probably was a little bit tricky, or maybe it was just really, really noisy, because I don't know if it was like wax paper or what, or if it was like
a whole plastic suit or something.
Yes.
Or like that fake leather or whatever. Did it sound like that? I just want to know who, this would be a good idea. Let's have a creepy ass beak and we'll stick herbs down in it. Then we all have to wear cloaks. Let's put wax all over them. Why? Because I like that bill, And then let's get sticks.
I like the way it
we
looks.
all need sticks. You never know what might happen. It's just So weird.
Do you remember when we were in New Orleans and we went into the voodoo? It's somebody's name. It's like Marie Laveau's voodoo shop. Okay, when we went in there and there was a guy sitting in the way back corner. He was wearing a waxy outfit also. it was skin tight.
I know where you're. Okay, he was wearing a plastic outfit, a plastic tuxedo, right, or something.
Yeah,
it was like full body, that pleather, or it wasn't even pleather. It was plastic.
It could have been a garbage bag.
And we were sweating our fucking balls off. And so I don't know how he was surviving in that.
I have no idea.
There was maybe like one tiny fan in there,
Tiny.
like those ones that used to have in like the 70s that you'd hook in your visor in your car.
Yeah.
You know, that's all he had. And he was just like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" I think he even had makeup on. It wasn't running.
Oh,
I was like,
perfect.
That's a real person.
I didn't think, both of us were looking at him like, come on. We're hallucinating because it's so damn hot.
That is a possibility. I just assume he did some voodoo magic to himself to survive that outfit.
For real.
And the heat, so.
I just had to bring that up. That has nothing to do with my story, but I was just thinking.
Our super bad sidebar.
All right. So in 1777, the Magistrate of Health took control of the island, turning it into a checkpoint. Any boat or ship heading to Venice needed to pass a rigorous inspection as a preventative measure against the spread of diseases. In the 1790s, 2 ships failed this inspection, finding multiple cases of plague on board. As a result, Poveglia Island once again became a quarantine colony, which would become its permanent role under the rule of Napoleon Bonaparte. Soon the dead bodies quickly started overcrowding the island, and thousands were being dumped into large common graves, until later when the bodies could be incinerated. Again, the Italians started shipping off anyone with the slightest signs of an illness. Many of these people weren't even actually infected with the plague, though they were still being dragged to the Poveglia and left there. Poveglia's sole purpose became the last stop for people with infectious diseases. And aside from all of their usual day-to-day fears of like accidentally coughing in public and being shipped away to rot with the diseased.
Right. Yeah. I've been totally thinking about this the whole time. I bet people every time they had like the sniffles, they like went into hiding.
If they stubbed their toe at this point and they're like doubled over in pain, they're like, the fuck out of here. You got the plague. I mean, it was anything. And that's why they would go there for like a quarantine for 40 days. They'd be like, yeah, okay, so she really just stubbed her toe. She's okay. Then you get the plague because you've been around it for so long. But anyways, at that point, the locals started sharing stories of the terminally ill Venetians returning as ghosts to haunt the island. Oh, and just as a side note here, I read that the quarantined individuals were allowed to send and receive mail, though according to one of Poveglia's former Lazaretto residents in 1831, the outgoing letters were stabbed, sprinkled with vinegar, and fumigated before leaving the island.
I want to know what they're fumigated with, because I'm just like, they stab them and put vinegar. So I can't wait to hear what the recipe is for fumigating. If you think that stabbing it and sprinkling vinegar on it is going to stop the plague.
It's yeah, right, exactly. This'll do it. But okay, imagine you're at home in Venice. You finally get a letter from your, I don't know, daughter, son, husband, wife, whatever. It's been 35 days. You're like, God, I've missed him. I haven't heard from him in so long. You finally get a letter. It's been punched with like knives and it's sprinkled with vinegar and it has this weird glaze of some kind of film all over it. You try to open it and read it. You can't read shit because I'm sure that vinegar ate through whatever ink they were using back in the day.
It's problematic. This is all not working out very well.
No, it did not work out very well.
So that meant that the actual plague victims probably, they weren't allowed to send mail at all. If you said that only the quarantined ones were. Well, I'm sorry, the 40-day. Wait, what did you just say?
Yeah, this was.
I thought I heard you say only people that went for 40 days, but actually maybe you just said quarantine. They're all quarantined. So
they're all quarantined. And actually, they said that they had prisoners on the island. And the only reason why I didn't go into that is because there's not a lot of evidence that supports. I say this as I'm about to go into a totally... You're
like, I didn't want to tell this story because it might not be true. Let me tell you this story, though.
It might not be true, but hang on a second. I got something real fascinating to tell you. I do have something crazy, though. I got to tell you this. During an excavation on the island in 2005, archaeologists unearthed more than 1,500 skeletal victims of the bubonic plague buried on the pits. find. Okay. And while archaeologists were examining this grisly find, they discovered something even more shocking. A fucking vampire.
No. What are you saying to me?
Okay. A vampire, or at least someone that was thought to be a vampire back in the 16th century. They were able to determine this because a large brick had been shoved in between its jaws. And this was done because they believed that this was the only way that they could starve a vampire, or what would have also been known as a shroud eater.
Okay. So they're only accused of being a vampire because somebody accused them of being a vampire and shoved a brick in their mouth, which, by the way, how does that happen? Like, my jaws can't open up that wide. So
I think they were dead.
Is this a tiny brick? Or
I think it was...
They do it afterwards.
I think it was, yeah. So I read some more into this, but I put this on my last page for just in case Wendy asked me questions. This was like a grave...
Because you don't know.
This was a grave...
I'm like a child.
No. It's just there was a lot of conjecture in the story because they don't know a lot about it, and they're just now sort of unearthing this area where the bubonic plague victims were. So when they came across this grave where this person's face had been just like jammed with a rock in it, they were able to tell that the victim was a female. But they were under the impression that it was grave robbers, and that the grave robbers must have, like, they unearthed this, found something with the way the body looked, or hadn't, what do corpses do?
Decomposed.
Right. It hadn't decomposed like other corpses they had seen, or, things that we know now are just a part of the natural way bodies decompose, whereas back then they thought it was a shroud eater or whatever. So that's why those people had done it. But there's no like evidence that says this was a vampire. This is name any of them from back then. What was one of the guys from the Interview with a Vampire? This is Lestat. This is, there was none of that.
Like Brad Pitt?
Tom Cruise? Who?
What do you
Christian Slater was in that one too, wasn't he? Christian Slater was the interviewer.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Christian Slater.
Yeah, we were just talking. He's the best. Well, I love me some vampires, so I'm all about this. And there's so many legends around them that something had to have been up. But yeah, there is also those stories that are, have been researched and thought out, and it's people misunderstanding the way that a body might decompose under certain situations. Like if they have certain diseases, their body doesn't decompose the same way.
Right.
And so when they unearth them for some reason, like you said, they buried them, and then they must have been digging them back up to burn them, because you said they buried them until they could be incinerated. So they probably went to dig it back up, and they're like, this one is not like all the others. So she must be a fucking vampire, right? Well, cool. Badass for her.
Right.
I love vampire stories. So
I know you would like that. On top of that, the skull is actually on display at the Lazaretto Nuovo, and seems like you should be able to just visit it via tour group. So if we do ever find ourselves in Italy, this is one of those things that we'll definitely have to seek out.
Like I just said, I love vampires. And it seems like well, no, it doesn't actually. I was going to say it seems like a vampire's playground, but, as we learned in Interview with a Vampire, you don't eat plague victims.
Yeah, you definitely don't eat the plague victims. I don't know. In my head, I kind of like the idea that they were, like, digging up the plague victims so that they can incinerate them. And, they're shoveling, and then all of a sudden, she wakes up, she stands up, she's got her arms crossing her chest, and she's all, and they just took that rock, and they're like, not today, bitch! Shoved it right in her mouth, and they just covered her right back up. Like, nope, we're not coming back to this grave anytime soon.
I agree.
Let's go, Johnny.
I love that story way better than them just not understanding science.
Right, exactly. Scientists believe that there are still thousands more plague victims buried in the ground. So just think about what else is waiting to be discovered in Poveglia's plague pits. I hope more vampires, personally.
Yes. I don't think they travel together all that much.
Oh, that's true.
I think they're solitary animals, unless they're like Twilight vampires,
Then maybe there'll be werewolves. So in 1922, the island was again used as a quarantine station. However, the existing buildings were converted into an asylum for the mentally ill and those that required long-term care.
Okay.
This should be something that we should be able to research and get some more information on.
Well, imagine the time frame and what they were doing and getting away with in those asylums.
Right.
They're not keeping records.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point.
They're not going to. They're trying not to talk about it.
Yeah,
so I imagine it was totally such a good idea to send the mentally ill off to the most evil island in the world.
I know, right?
With all the ghosts running around. I'm sure that really helped out their situation.
They were just looking for a use for this island. They weren't even considering all of the shit that had happened on this island already. Yeah, let's go ahead and ship off the mentally ill there now as well, because they just didn't want to deal with it.
Right.
As the Poveglia legend goes, a particularly demented doctor who worked at the island's mental hospital was allegedly performing horrific experiments on his patients. He believed that lobotomies treated and cured mental illness and would perform lobotomies against the will of his patients. His procedures were horrendous and brutal, using hammers, chisels, and drills with no anesthesia or concern for sanitation. He was also known for saving his most horrific experiments for those that he considered to be his special patients.
Why is there always got to be that one?
Right.
You know, I wish that the medical school doctors were I hope that they are paying more attention these days. And they're like, that one looks like he enjoys this shit way too much.
That's right, exactly. They're like, H.H. Holmes? Nope, not today, sir. You're going to jail instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, there's always that one that thinks they got a brilliant idea, and really they're just monsters. And had they not gotten the education because they had the money or whatever, they would be murderers.
Yeah, that's true.
They are murder. I mean, they basically are, but they think they're doing it under like legal practices.
Back in the day, they didn't have the science that we do today. They didn't have as many cadavers to experiment on in order to see what would happen when, you did this or that. So that's why those monsters kind of came to be.
Right. Well, that's the thing. They don't let you do human trials.
You can't do that shit.
Thing. Sorry. Like, you can't. I mean, like, not for these kind of things. You know how they have to test medicine and whatnot and all this on, like, plants, and then maybe they get a mouse, and then finally they get to try it on a human after they develop it. So these people were just, impatient, and they were like, we'll never know unless we try it on these patients. But the shit they were coming up with was ridiculous.
Somebody had to be in charge at this fucking place. They couldn't have just been like, oh, Dr. Doug Janankles or whatever. I'm just giving him some name because there is no name for this mad doctor. Oh, the CEO of Asylum on Poveglia, there's got to be somebody that he reports to, right? And he's walking in with his gloves all full of blood, and CEO is like, Dr. Janankles, I heard you've been doing those lobotomies again. And I mean, is he like a calm dude? And he's like, well, of course I am, because I have to try and cure the patients. I mean, I wonder really like how he spun that. I mean, if there was somebody that he reported to, because somebody was keeping his ass there.
So,
right?
So basically, doctors are not too far off from being sociopaths, and they can convince you, and they just have a way. I mean, like, they don't have that empathetic.
You think it's like an ego trip?
Yeah. As for somebody that works with doctors, I can tell you that they're ego driven, and they, there are a lot of great doctors out there and stuff, but, I do work with some really great ones, but I think their ego plays a part in it. Wanting to be successful and perfect has a lot to do with it. A lot of them are perfectionists.
Yeah.
And in this case, at a time where science was developing, all they had to do was tell the CEO is, once I figure this out and once I prove that this works, we'll be famous. We'll be world renowned, that our treatments are working, and this is, we've developed something new and great. So that's all they had to say.
We've done something good for humanity.
So it's going to take a handful of crazies nobody cares about anyways, right?
Hundreds of thousands.
No big deal. A handful, hundreds of thousands,
Whatever.
Potato. Like,
right, exactly.
But I'm going to figure this out and we're going to be famous. And the CEO was like, okay, sounds good. As long as nobody finds out.
Right. I mean, on the flip side, if people were just being shipped away because they were mentally ill, I mean, more than likely they were forgotten about when they were shipped off anyways. So, I mean, it's another sad, tragic end because they're being shipped off for hopefully care and they get mistreated and they are experimented on so that one guy can maybe claim fortune and fame one day, and it sucks.
A lot of pain and helplessness. In this area, feeling this, like the energy on the island.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, like, did the monks foreshadow something? Is that why they were just like, don't talk to me about this fucking island?
Believe it or not, I try not to interrupt you that much. I know how bad I am asking questions and side stories, but the new season of Lore is on Amazon.
Oh, I know. I haven't seen it yet. Oh, God. Does he do the story?
No. You know what? I think one time
Oh, has he?
Yeah. I think one time he did one of his little, like, intros, and he mentioned
Poveglia.
and I was like, yes, want to hear this story. And then he's like, flip the switch, and he's like, let me talk to you about this other asylum in New Jersey. And I was like, what? Because he only has 30-minute shows, and he knows he can't get it done in that time.
That's
probably.
Right.
He gives you a lot of information in 30 minutes. But what was I saying? Oh, the new Lore episode, the one that I just watched like last night, was about some clock in Prague that. And I don't remember hearing this Lore episode, but it's some clock in Prague that people believed was cursed because everybody that tried to fix the clock would end up like going mad and killing themselves, and this clock like wouldn't work for like 60 years or whatever. And then there's something about the clock knowing the future of that entire city. Like and so this one guy that seemed to have like visions already, he had a dream about it, and so he came to try to fix the clock, and then every time he touched it, he could see into the future.
Wow.
So this clock was built by like some religious person because it's in like a church or something. It's got these little figures at the top that spin around, and it's of saints and stuff. So when you were saying like the monks were like, nope, I was like, yeah, I bet they had that power. They touched that island. They were like, negative.
No thanks.
We're good.
I came across that story, and it was just a short blurb of what I read. And then the more I read into the story, that's all I could ever find out. So I looked into the monks themselves just to see if they had like died off after that or something. But like I said, they seem to have actually grown and became really a huge group. A couple of different groups of monks, but I wondered if they had had a sense.
Yeah. Or somebody in their pack has that ability, because I 100% support, there's people that are just born with it or whatever, but also the more you are spiritual in whatever your beliefs are, just the more enlightened you are about the world around you typically. Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like that will come with it. The more into your spiritual beliefs you are, the more in tuned you are to everything that's happening around you.
You do become a beacon for that sort of stuff to come in.
For visions and whatever.
Visions, yeah.
It's not going to happen for everybody. I don't say all of a sudden if you start to really practice your faith that all of a sudden you're a fucking psychic. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if you...
Damn it! I was taking notes.
I've read these things about we all have this ability. We all have this tiny little bit of psychic ability, and it's how much you open it up. So the more and more spiritual you are, the stronger your ability gets. Mm-hmm. And so for people that have a decent amount of that ability, it only gets better. And then so I bet you there was some monk that could see the fucking future. That's what I'm getting at. That's my story.
I buy it.
Yeah.
Sold.
We're going to write that book.
Oh, yeah. The doctor. What'd I call him? Mr. Jenkles? Mr. Jenkles. Dr. Jenkles.
I thought at one point his name was Doug.
Doug Jenkles.
I don't know.
Dr. Doug.
Maybe Doug was the CEO.
I don't know. I give so many people different names, and then I can't even stick it out because this story is a huge story full of no names, so I have to do something here. Or I'm just calling him Demented Doctor throughout the whole thing.
That's good. I mean, that works.
Okay. Well, then for those special patients, he would perform his experiments in the hospital's bell tower, and some claim that the screams from those being tortured can still be heard across the island.
Did he think the bell tower was a secluded place? I mean, it sounds like, let me go to the highest point on the island and torture someone. As if sound travels, motherfucker. That's not how that works. You should have went down into a cave basement situation.
He had like an American Horror Story. They understood where to go. This guy, he had some kind of a fascination with the bell tower because...
Oh, that was just like his spot where
he
felt like he was doing his spot. Okay, never mind. I take that back, sir, then, because I can understand that. I like to work in my certain spaces.
Well, there was some kind of a draw to that tower, and whether it be that it was just his workspace or whatever, something else happened. I'm just about to get into it. It's just weird that it kind of all connects to the bell tower for him. According to the story, he began to suffer from his own mental breakdown and began claiming that he was being tortured by the island's multitude of ghosts. Eventually, he totally lost his shit and jumped off the top of the bell tower.
Oh, well, that's just like, what do they call it?
Ironic?
I don't know. That come full circle. That's an awesome story. Because the way I envision it is all these poor people that passed away from the plague or whatever, the military service that were there. These are all people that it was out of their control being there and losing their life in space. And it was probably sad for them. And so here's this doctor tormenting these people that are in the same situation they were. And so it's like the ghost of the island were like, not today, motherfucker. And they fought back and drove him insane. What if they pushed him off the bell tower?
So that is one of the stories.
I like that one.
That is another story. But let me tell you this first before I get into that. According to the story that I was telling you earlier, he jumped off the top of the bell tower, and supposedly a nurse witnessed his fall, said that he initially survived, but a ghostly mist appeared that covered his body and choked that motherfucker out. And I'm not even playing. There was a nurse that witnessed this, and that's how the story came to be part of the legend.
I love it. And I totally believe it.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
I like that one. I knew you would like that because he thought that he was going to get away from it by committing suicide, jumping from the bell tower. And they're like, no, we're going to capture you in this white, fluffy, soft cloud. And we're going to gently float you nice and easy, put you down on the ground. And then I'm going to strangle the life out of you. That is the most well-known story of how the doctor died. There are, of course, a dozen others. One story suggests that he was actually pushed out of the bell tower by the hands of his revenge-seeking patients. Another story says the doctor was captured by his lobotomized patients and bricked up inside the wall of the bell tower while he was still alive. I think that one's more of one of those let's tell a tale around the campfire sort of things. The demented doctor was captured by his lobotomized patients and bricked up in the... How could the lobotomized patients actually brick and mortar up a wall? I mean, would they be able to?
No, that was somebody trying to put a different spin on it. And then it's like, no, man, if you're going to tell ghost stories, keep it simple, like white mist killing somebody, because nobody can prove that. I mean, nobody's going to say, well, where's the wall?
Right.
Don't make it physical. It has to be like... There's a vision. And there was only one witness. And
only one witness. Right, exactly.
Yeah, gosh. Don't know how to tell a damn ghost story.
I know. People fuck it up all the time.
Don't get so detailed.
The locals claim that the doctor's spirit is still in the tower and that you can hear him ringing the tower bell.
Now, I bet you can't get... I mean, obviously, there's rules about being on the island in the first place. Mm-hmm. But I bet the bell tower is probably not a safe place to travel to, even if you were allowed to go.
It is not. I'll go ahead and touch on that now, because I don't actually have that in my story, though. There are pictures of it online, because you can, for those that actually can get to the island, you can take pictures up inside the bell tower, but the stairs are completely rusted out. You will probably get tetanus from touching them. And, if you're brave enough to actually jump up there and climb up, all of the windows have been boarded up, so you can't even see out. It wouldn't even be worth it to go up there and take a picture. But the asylum itself is allegedly haunted, so you will be close enough to the bell tower. It's just that there's no way to actually get up in there now.
But that answers my next question. I was wondering if people thought it was that he haunted the bell tower because maybe they had gotten a picture from it, like from the ground,
right.
And he's like, but the windows are boarded up, is what you're saying. Okay. I'm just, if we ever go to Italy and can sneak a little boat over there and stuff like that, I'm just trying to figure this all out.
I think
our break in.
I know. I've got a plan for
what's
us.
Safe, what's not.
I know. I think we'd be best to bring a drone and just let that shit just fly around the island while we sit on a boat. There is a lot of dangerous things on this island. Make sure that you have a tetanus shot, but also a lot of the buildings are decaying anyways. There's a lot of missing floors. You can climb up the stairs into levels, but you better be very light-footed because they are falling away like as you're walking through there. So it's dangerous. There's no lights on the island.
You're not allowed to go there then.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, right? Me, shit. I will.
You will wait on the boat.
I'll step off the boat and die. Like I'll step right onto something that's dangerous, like immediately, no doubt. But still, it's still intriguing.
And I bet you. Well, I don't know, and I don't know if you know this. Like, how fortified is the island? Is there a big chain link fence around it or something like that? But I bet you, because you can find pictures online, so they let somebody go over there. Yeah. But it's probably like reporters that have asked the government for permission to go over there.
Yeah, the mental hospital, it finally closed down in 1968, and it was left abandoned. Though sometime in the 90s, the asylum was actually used for raves. Those must have been some badass raves.
Fuck yeah. Do you think they sell it as the most evil place on earth? And they're like, do you want to go to hell to go to a rave tonight or whatever?
Yeah,
and
right.
they're like, yeah, duh.
Duh. That had to be awesome. I'm sad that I missed out on the whole rave part of my life because I would have totally loved to have been at Poveglia during this time frame. I think that would have been super cool.
I wonder if those people have ghost stories to come back with, or they were all too high on ecstasy to like be able to share anything comprehensive. Anyways,
they wouldn't be able. The fucking, like you said, they were taking X, so they were probably seeing all kinds of shit, and they ain't about to tell anybody about those things that they saw. No one's gonna believe them, and they'll know that they were doing drugs. So that's not gonna happen. I don't have any stories prepared for you from the ravers, so unfortunately,
they probably would have sounded like some of those spooked stories that I was talking about.
Yeah, right.
So extreme that you're like, are you making this shit up?
Yeah, a little too extreme. Also, Poveglia Island still happens to be home to thriving grape vineyards. There are people that visit the island seasonally for harvesting the fruit. Apparently, grapevines do extremely well in ashy soil because it has been said that more than 50% of the island's soil is composed of human ash. Think about that the next time you're drinking a glass of Italian wine.
Well, I can't afford that, to be honest.
Yeah, mine's usually from California, so I'm looking at my bottle.
California too.
Oh, this one's Australian. Oh, I knew that.
Yeah, that's as far as I've gone with my wine connoisseuring is Australia, Chile, heavy California.
If we make it to Italy, we're going to be drinking ciders because I'm pretty sure their wine is coming directly from the source.
It's probably so good, though.
So what you're saying is we have to try it. Well, okay.
A little sip. It is really, really sad. Yeah. So it doesn't all come from that island.
No, and I mean, I've never actually seen like a bottle of wine that specifically says from this particular island.
I have a feeling they're not advertising that.
No, I bet they're not. Unless the wine bottle is like Poveglia wine, and like it's called Poveglia.
I'd have to own it, and then I don't know how I would feel about drinking it.
It's a very, very, very dark red.
Oh no, that may be the one bottle of wine I would actually keep in my house. I have this, but I'm telling other people, which you don't have to leave this in our wine podcast. I have the where you stick the wine bottles or whatever. It like built in in the living room. There's a spot for wine bottles, and I'm assuming this is supposed to be be like where you put your wine to
stock.
let it age.
Yeah.
You're like vintage wines, but not too vintage because they're obviously not in like a cooling device or anything.
The Pussifer wines that you bought from Jerome, Arizona.
I think this is where you're supposed to store full bottles of wine, and all mine are empty bottles of wine up there that I just can't get rid of because I like labels or whatever. Yeah. And I want to fill that spot up. So they're all empty. I don't know how many people can have 30 bottles of wine just sitting up there. But this would be the one. I would buy if there was a bottle of wine that said it came from this island.
Yeah, this would be the one that you kept.
I'd keep it until I got really desperate.
Well, I had a collection of Elvis wines that I kept for a really, really long time, and the wine was cheap, so it sat, and something happened to the wine in the bottle, and it turned into like a toxic sludge. So I had to throw those away. Oh my God, it turned into something. I'm like, I can't keep this anymore because I'm afraid that if I break it open, we're all gonna die. Like it's gonna just be smoke billowing out, or we're all gonna turn into zombies. It's like one of those gases or something. So yeah, I had to throw away the Elvis wines.
See, that's why I don't keep wine in my house for longer than a week.
Well, just note to you, if you do get a bottle of wine from Poveglia, make sure it's expensive because maybe it'll have a longer shelf life.
Yes.
Than my Elvis wines. Anyways, yeah, so we could go to the island dressed as I don't know, vineyard keeper-uppers, or I don't know, what are they called? What are those people called? Farmers? Is that what they're called?
I mean, if anybody asked me, who are you? I think I'd go with farmer, just to not say, what'd you call yourself a second ago? A vineyard worker, keeper?
Vineyard keeper-upper?
Yeah. I think I'd go with farmer.
Not convincing at all. Yeah.
I'm sure that's not the word that they use, though, actually. You're right.
I'll look it up.
Got to be a different word for it.
When the time's ready for us, I'll have our stories.
But we can go there dressed in like, the Lucille Ball episode.
Like the factory workers?
No, there was one where she was stomping on grapes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe her and her friend, but maybe just her. We dress like that and go to the island to collect them. No, we just wear like, those outfits that look like
is it like
I actually have no idea what the cranberry grape people wear in the commercials. They're like what,
like the waiters.
Yeah I feel like this is not going to go over well with the Italian government or police officers.
I don't think they're going to buy it.
I feel like the best method is just to play dumb.
Yeah.
We get a little like kayak or whatever you use on this water. I don't know how rough it is. And then we just stop there.
Oh, like Dark Tourist?
And then
like the dark tourist guy? He went with his like GoPro and he tried to get as close to that. Yeah.
And he's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? I do not know. Oh, you're not supposed to? Oh, I didn't know. So we just stop. And if we get caught, we'll be like, oh, I didn't know you weren't supposed to be on this island. We don't read Italian, so we don't know that that's what the signs say. I had to take a pee, so I was looking for a bush, or something to hide behind. Yeah, I really am like, don't like peeing in public and whatnot. So I went as far in to the bell tower, trying to find some privacy.
Sure. That makes sense to me.
That's all I was doing. Oh, is this place haunted? Because I can't even say the name of the place.
No, right.
So they're going to really believe me. I'd be like, what's it called again? Or what?
Well, all I'm going to say on that note is we tried that when we were in New Orleans to go into that death museum with the don't bring food in here. We're like, what? We can't bring food in here? And that didn't work out so well for us then. But we didn't get arrested. So I guess all in all, it was a pretty good.
That's a win right there. That's the only goal is to see how far you can get away with something without getting arrested.
True. Oh. Mm-hmm. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have ideas.
That's my number one goal in life.
Yeah.
Goals. Yep.
Sometime after Poveglia Island's mental hospital was shut down, a family decided to purchase the island with the intention of building a private holiday home there. They arrived and started settling in. Yeah, I know. Isn't that beautiful? We're just going to buy this island and build our private holiday home there.
It has a beautiful bell tower. The soil is perfect here for my rose garden.
My vineyards, yes. I'll create my own wine. These guys must have been assholes anyways. That's all I got to say. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. There is something bad that happens.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were all really excited to begin their new adventure. But the very first night was filled with such horror that the family ended up fleeing the island, never to return. They reported that their daughter's face was nearly ripped off by an angry resident entity.
That's not good.
That is not good. I don't know.
How is your face nearly ripped off? Like,
they got started, they got to the nose, and they were like, yeah, no, we can't go any farther. No, I really don't know. Seriously, it just, that's what the report was. And the thing is, that's why I'm saying they must have been assholes. They must have went in there and were flaunting their shit, or they were kicking across signs, or maybe they were just being dirty to the entities. Maybe they were saying some shit about the people that had passed away. But of all of the stories that I come across, there are feelings there that are bad. People have been pushed. People have been shoved. But nobody has come this close to getting that much injury that as soon as they got there, they must have been doing something crazy.
Or at least just her, for sure. You know. Yeah, man. They must have just went over there and started talking mad shit about the place and how they were going to remodel and it looked like trash. And somebody didn't like that. So,
right.
Because, I mean, like the way that the story that we would like to envision, that the spirits fought back against the douchebag doctor that was doing experiments on people, they seemed like good people. And like everybody that was going over there, they were poor, innocent people, you know, not literally poor, but poor, like poor thing.
Right.
So you're wondering, like, the only evil that you see over there, or you think about, is the doctor. Why is he wanting to rip somebody's face off? But maybe like the people that live there and work there and spent all this time there were really attached, and if they came over and said something ugly, maybe they get defensive. But
possibly. Now, the doctor was supposed to be demented, and he performed horrible experiments, including lobotomies on his patients. So when these people are reporting that their daughter's face was nearly ripped off and it was by an angry resident entity, maybe somebody was trying to hold her down to perform a lobotomy on her. I mean, maybe that's what was going on. I mean, that would involve the sinus cavity and shit.
Yeah, unless her face is half ripped off in a section, how do you really know her face is being ripped off? Maybe it was just a feeling of burning and whatnot on her face, that's how they described it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So
well, and that could be another thing that you're onto. Like, a lot of people have reported feeling a burning sensation on like a side of their face or whatever, and that's synonymous with like getting hit. You know, if you get hit, there's like an impact, usually like not like a handprint, but there's like a mark left on your face and it burns. I don't know if the family couldn't say that her face was nearly ripped off. I mean, she could have said that it felt like her face was being ripped off, and maybe the story just got distorted with the years. Who knows?
So it almost could be, though, that it's not even an intelligent, active spirit that's attacking people, and it could just be a wave of residual energy for what people experienced while they were there.
True, it could be. Because like I said, this is the only case that I have of all of the stories that I've seen where somebody had received some kind of bodily injury from being on that island.
Okay.
So, but there's a lot of negative feelings that go on there. So it might just be that you say the wrong thing at the wrong time and your face nearly gets ripped off. Or, I mean, we were talking about vampires and werewolves earlier. But anyways, I won't stray too far from the story.
Okay. Focus. Don't lose focus about the vampire.
Right. I know. I love that.
I was about to do that.
But there is a story of a curiosity thrill seeker who went to Poveglia with a group of friends. This is a cool story. Upon entering the abandoned mental hospital, the illegal tourists reported a heavy sense of dread, which immediately was followed by a deep voice warning them, leave immediately and do not return. So they peaced out.
That was so nice of them to just be like, okay, all right, bye. You're not pushing their luck.
They felt it. It felt really bad. And they all heard this voice. They were like, we're good. We are leaving right now. I don't know how they got off of that island so quickly, though. In 2014, the Italian state auctioned a 99-year lease of Poveglia, which would remain state property. They did that to raise revenue, hoping that a buyer would redevelop the hospital into a luxury hotel. The highest bid was from an Italian business owner. However, he did not have it for very long before he sold it to another owner. In both instances, the new owners couldn't bear spending any length of time there. The atmosphere was reportedly heavy and morbid. The strange sounds combined with all of the hauntings continued to prevail. As a result, the island was again left completely abandoned. It seems like, from what I've read, it's people that go in there owning these islands, and they're going to fix it up, change it, make it their own, or redevelop it for something else. And those people are either attacked, or they decide they can't handle it and they got to go.
That is powerful and interesting.
It is, yeah.
Because it is a consistent report, and it shows a pattern that they're trying to make changes and redevelop the area, and something is like, not today. No, you're not. And they're like, okay, see you later. Bye.
Yeah, right.
I mean, for so many people, because think about this. If they built a hotel on that property this year and they start renting out rooms, where are we going next year? We're going to fucking Italy, and we're staying in this hotel. They would, in a heartbeat, sell out to people insane like us.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it. So either the conditions on this island are atrocious, or this shit's really happening. These feelings and experiences are really happening. Because it's real easy to say, yeah, they get a bad feeling and that's why they back out of the deal. And then come to find out, it's built on swampland and you can't get cable out there or whatever. And so people are like, nope.
No Wi-Fi? No thanks.
Can't run a business that way. If I can't get Wi-Fi in my hotel, we have a problem.
Fuck that. So, it's a dead zone.
I don't have an unlimited data plan. That shit's expensive.
I mean, that shit is important.
You would think that you would be able to find a report out there about that, like, oh, it's also built on really shitty land, or something isn't working out there, and so everybody's noping out of their deals.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're saying. They're all just like, it just don't feel good out there.
Right. I mean, and that's coming after they've already purchased it. I mean, this thing goes up for auction, and people have to buy in just to get in the auction, and then they buy it. Then they start making arrangements to do shit, and then they're like, hell to the no, we ain't doing this. So, yeah, there's really something going on there. And with that said, it has come up for sale again. So
let's win that lotto.
Yeah, and it's only $400 billion.
Okay, never mind. Sorry.
I mean,
sorry to bother you. Bullshit. They can't charge $400 billion. What'd you just say?
$400 billion.
This is like, what's that guy? Dr. Evil?
Yes.
Did he come up with this price?
Yeah.
$400 billion. Motherfucker. No way. The bell tower doesn't have windows. The building's crumbling.
No.
Half your land is human ash, not actual land. So I'm sure I can't put a shed on it.
Oh, damn.
All I can do is build grapes out here and make peace with these spirits so that maybe I can put in an air condition.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, Wendy, but think about it this way. You're not just getting an island. You're getting thousands of tormented souls that still remain trapped there. So, if you think about it that way,
then that $400 billion, I value human life. Okay, I see your point. I'm surprised the Italian government sees it that way as well, but that's right. Cool of them. That's very cool of them.
That's insane, isn't it? I don't know why they're coming up with such a ridiculous price tag. And honestly, I would think that over the years, after it being sold and resold and resold and resold, that the value would have plummeted. I mean, it seems like it would have dropped significantly. But according to what I've read online, it isn't. Maybe it's just all the ghost hunters, all the hype. I'm not sure. And maybe the wine is just that fucking good.
Oh my gosh. Now I really want one of those bottles of wine. I'm very disappointed that
I'm sorry.
I don't have $400 billion.
No, we don't. I don't. So we can't own the island, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, who knows? Maybe this podcast will really take off. Goals.
Sorry. That was loud, probably right into the mic. But yeah. You never know. Dreams.
You never
I think we're going to have to go back to our plan of breaking in.
Yeah. I think that's more our style anyways. Until Poveglia Island becomes suitable for businesses and residents once again, the area will continue to be a forbidden presence in Italy. It remains unoccupied to this day, except for the roaring population of tormented ghosts. The remaining buildings, a hospital, church, and a shelter for boats, are all crumbling away with time. Poveglia holds the debatable distinction of being listed as one of the world's most illegal places to visit. See, how come that wasn't in my title? Also known as the world's most illegal place to visit. Even though trespassers know that they will be sternly prosecuted under Italian law, bold, curious, and perhaps foolhardy travelers from all over the world continue to explore the paranormal possibilities by visiting this island illegally.
That makes it sound like it happened. A lot of other people have the same idea as us.
Yeah, I was watching a report that someone had posted on YouTube, and it was just a reporter who was talking about one of the sails that was falling through, I guess, on the island again. And they pan over, and they're talking about the ghost hunters that come to this island illegally, just to, check out the ghosts. There were like 3 people hopping off of a boat right then, and it was like a woman in a skirt. So it's like it's just regular people going over there to check this shit out. For those that are still seeking to explore this tiny, totally illegal to visit island, be prepared to search for a taxi for a long time. I like to spell out the fact that it's illegal because it is forbidden and you're not supposed to be there. Anyways, after you finally find someone...
I mean, you just said a taxi's going to take you over there.
It will. That's what I'm saying. It's just, you have to pay the right price because not all the taxis are going to be going because they know it's illegal. Maybe some of the taxis are already shady, doing shady shit, and they don't want to take that risk. Maybe some of the other ones are in good with the law, and for a couple like this right here, prices, the one that I read was €200, and that's a round trip. That actually calculates with the current conversion as $230 USD. And I say current conversion as of this week. And when you hear this podcast, that won't be the current conversion. So let's just say €200. Okay. Oh,
that sounds doable, by the way.
Yeah, €200, $230 round trip. Yeah, that's not a problem. I mean, I don't think it's just to go to Poveglia. So the problem is, like I said, is finding someone who's not sketchy. Let's not go a Sketchmaster boat taxi driver because some of these guys will drop you the fuck off and
peace out.
Yep.
Then you spend the night there.
Mm-hmm.
Then when the Italian government picks you up, you said, I was left here by
stranded.
My taxi driver. He was telling me this ghost story and I was giggling and stuff. And I was like, can you go on the island? And he was like, sure. And then he drove off. Can you believe that? They probably get that story a lot too.
They're like, hop in our jail taxi. We'll jail taxi you over to the real jail.
Cool, I needed a ride back. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, as a note, it's better to make a deal with your taxi that they'll receive full payment after they pick you back up from the island, just so that you're not left stranded. And I got that tip from watching probably somebody that you saw because you look at the same YouTube stuff that I look at. I think these are podcasters that they were filming themselves. So I don't know if they generally do videos or podcasts. I don't know. I subscribe to them because this was really interesting to me, but I don't even know what they're called. So it helps none of anybody listening. I've just given you a bunch of nonsense. But what I watched was them interviewing this chick. She's an author and a paranormal investigator and a world traveler. And her name is J.H. Moncrieff. I'm not sure what the J.H. stand for.
I like it, though. Makes her sound super cool.
I feel like after I watched her talking, I'm like, this is our chick. She's our people. Anyways, the author and paranormal investigator and world traveler named J.H. Moncrieff talked about her experience on the island as well as her adventure getting recovered after being stranded. She went to the island to investigate completely alone and immediately felt very uneasy. I already said that I watched the interview that she did on YouTube. It was extremely interesting. And from her video on YouTube, I discovered that I needed to learn myself and you too, since we're going to go there one day, but we need to learn a few Italian words. before visiting the island because she
That would
tried
probably be
communicating with
helpful.
the spirits in English and got nothing in response. But as soon as she started speaking in Italian, she had a very creepy, unexplainable occurrence from inside the asylum.
That is smart. That is way smart.
I would say here brush up on, but I don't have anything to brush up on. I just need to learn some Italian.
Just a few words to get them started. But then they're going to reply back in Italian too, and somebody's going to have to, we'll just have to be best friends with her.
Oh, yeah, I know. She writes a bunch of, I always get this backwards. Nonfiction is the stuff that's not true, right?
Right, yes.
Okay, thank you. I've gotten that backwards since I was a child. I don't know why it's so hard for me to remember.
No. Nonfiction.
Nonfiction is real.
It's real. Yes.
It's real? Okay.
See, your friend agrees with everything. Yes, it's a true story.
All right, so she writes a bunch of fiction stories. They all look like they'd be really, like, right up my alley. It's just that it's hard to squeeze in anything additional these days. Like, even earlier you were talking about listening to podcasts. I can't anymore. I can't listen to any other podcasts because I've been editing hours back to back. So it's like I've felt like I've done nothing but listen to podcasts. So it's just like I just need music. I can't listen to words anymore, you know?
I get like that too though. I'm like I've listened to people talk too much.
Yeah.
And so I'll have my music days and then I have which today coming home I wanted to get pumped up. So I was almost on a music rant and then I was like, let me finish. I had started a Spooked podcast. I started it on the way to work and I was like, let me finish that one. And it rolled into the second one.
So anyways, J.H. Moncrieff, what did she say? Oh, I think I'm done with her. As far as the story goes, she went to the island, she explored it. She got a lot of beautiful pictures. None of them had any paranormal goings on. She's very risky, so she was going in some parts of the asylum that I would probably be like, nope, I'm gonna die if I go in that room. She was taking some risks. She also said that I know I'm ruining it for you, but I guess the people that are listening, they might not go and watch her video. But she said that she forgot to bring a flashlight. So she had to use...
Oh, my gosh.
When she went, I don't know if the flashlight app was even a thing because she said she had to use her camera on her phone, the flash. So she was just using the flash just to see where she was going. So it was just spurts of light every 5 seconds or 10 seconds, however long it takes for that flash to go. That is horror movie level shit right there. You're in an abandoned asylum on a totally illegal island. You're isolated from the world basically, and you know all the dark history that's happened there, and you're using your camera flash to light your way. You're expecting something to come out. Anything, right? She did it, man. She's badass.
How is she not traumatized from this?
She seems totally cool. She's just like ready for the next thing. And she speaks Italian. So like I said, we're going to have to find this woman. Come with us. We need you. So other stories that I read about from visitors to the island are that they experience the sensations of being watched, being scratched, pushed into the walls, being chased down corridors. Many have also said that they've witnessed shadows moving along the walls as if the spirits are following along as they tiptoe through the decaying facility. And the handful of psychics who have been brought to the island claim that there is an energy that can only be described as malignant. The presence of the angry spirits is so deep that it has frightened psychics and paranormal experts so badly that most of them refuse to ever return. And to that, Wendy, I say, challenge accepted.
I don't know. I'm totally, yes. Have to see it.
I know.
Have to do it one day if you could. I know how illegal you've told me it is. Illegal. But damn, what is going on over there? Like, it's got a lot of traumatic experiences. So it's a lot of sadness, a lot of, I'm sure, just like feelings of despair.
Yeah.
And those are bad energies.
Deep emotional.
But, we've been in places before where you can feel an overwhelming sense of sadness. I don't know how that despair gets twisted to just like dark and not good,
Right.
That's a different energy. So I can't believe that one doctor would bring that energy in. So like, what else is it?
multiple doctors on that island, and maybe that's why there's so many different stories about how that doctor died. Maybe it's just a different story for each different doctor. But like you were saying, it was despair. It was sadness. It was emotion that was built into that island from day one, from the wars and stuff that had happened, that had taken place there, to the plague victims. And then it gets transformed into a different type of energy, bringing in the mental institution and the experiments that were performed on, again, people that were innocent. They were just people that wanted to live regular lives. And that's what the plague victims were. They were just trying to live out their day to day. And whether they had the plague or whether they didn't, they were dragged to that island and then dropped off and left to die, just like trash. They were just thrown to the side, just like the mental patients. They were just left there. They were just thrown away. And I didn't see any like death records or people that were just like, this was one of my family members. It just seems like it's all been a bit of forgotten history, which could play into the spirits being angry at this point. I mean, they're mad. They were mistreated. They were just human beings, and their stories just got twisted. I could understand why they would be angry to this point. I could understand why they'd want to hurt people. You got to go in there with respect, and I think that the people that go in there that aren't being respectful are the ones that are coming out saying shit like their face is getting ripped off. I think that there's a little bit more to it. I think that those people, they're the spirits of those people, they deserve respect. I mean, except for if the demented doctor is still lingering, then he just needs to fucking move on.
Yeah, but what we were talking about the plague doctors too. I mean, like, why they got those fucking sticks? I mean, they probably weren't the nicest people in the world either. They probably kind of loathed going to work every day under these conditions and in the fear that they were going to get sick too. And I imagine some of them probably did. Like, I mean, those herbs really did not stop the plague from happening.
If you have a bellyache, man, if you rub some peppermint on your stomach, that does really help. But like, does that stuff really help to keep you from getting the plague? I have no idea. I've never been around it. I've never stuffed herbs into a creepy Halloween mask just so that I don't contract a virus.
You should try it out this year during the flu season at work.
So I was going to say I didn't research any more onto how those doctors actually made it off that island.
Or if they did. Yeah. Well, thank you for telling me that story, because I've been craving it, and Lord teased me one day and didn't give it to me, because you can't really find that episode with the Ghost Adventures anymore. And I mean, there's tons of stuff you can read about it, but
yeah, there's tons of stuff. Like I said, I was interested in the fact that now there is also like an alleged vampire tied to the story.
Yes.
It just makes it even more interesting. Like I've already wanted to go. I don't know if I'll actually make it on the island, but as close as I can get. I mean, for 200 euros, I can get pretty damn close. I think I can get on the island. It's just like I said in my story, make sure that you make a deal with whoever's boating it, that they don't get full payment until after they pick your ass back up, because maybe that is why the deals fall through on these hotels and shit. The reception on your cell service isn't good. It sucks. So if you're stranded.
Definitely my service. I mean, I have AT&T. It's not working there, I'm sure. But maybe Verizon reaches out there. You never know. Yeah, no, that's good advice for anybody, because I wouldn't have thought about that. Thank God I travel with you. Like, I'm like, here, sir, take my money. Drop me off over there. Hey, where he going? He must be planning on coming back.
He's going to come back in a little while. He's going to circle the island.
I'm like, okay, I'll see you in a couple. He can't hear me.
He's like, he's back at the other island.
And I'm just an hour later after I explore, I'm waiting by the docks, and he's never coming. Then the police come.
Oh, I thought you were my taxi. Damn it.
I'm going to have to work on my story, but I bet you I won't know enough Italian to tell them any of it. So
no, I wanted to tell you that story. I wanted to do that story. There's so much more out there that I might do a follow-up to that one someday, just FYI.
Well, maybe we'll go there and then we can talk a bit more. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It's a great story, and it's a really, really cool location. And the fact that it's like illegal makes it seem even that much more legit. And it's, the stories that come from it, the locals are seriously scared of it. So It's not playing around. It's not one of this is the most scariest place on earth. And then they've got like day tours, and school functions go there and stuff like it's not like one of those places, you know what I mean? So this place seems so legit and so awesome. And the fact that a couple of people like Ghost Adventures have gotten to go on the island, so you've gotten to see little pieces of it. And I remember their episode, they got a white mist over in that field that is made of human ash, and they got like a cool ass white mist. And then, so when you were talking about the white mist finished the doctor off, I was like, fuck yeah, I've seen that mist on TV, and I was like, it's legit.
I didn't even think about that. I wonder if that's the same one. Like, what if that's like, that was like the actual like occurrence playing out? That's insane.
That's a really good location.
It is. Yeah. Anyways, so that's it. That's all I got for this episode. So,
well, we'll definitely share. Not only are you going to send it to me so that I can watch it, but we'll share the video from our best friend, our soon-to-be best friend.
I love J.H. Moncrieff. I'll find it.
We'll share it on our Facebook page, which is COTN Paranormal. And then, so you can check us out there, look for that video, and we'll share like some photos and whatnot, anything that we can find. So you can find us on COTN Paranormal on Facebook. It's also the same name on Instagram, so you can follow any photos that we post there. If you'd like to email us any experiences you've had that relate to the story or just experiences, period, we just love to hear that kind of shit. So you can email us at creaturesofthenightparanormal@gmail.com.
That'd be awesome. I've got some pictures already lined up that I know I'm going to go and put on Instagram because I was just super fascinated by the plague doctor's outfit, if you couldn't tell by listening to the story. So anyways,
Big fan. Lots of questions. Love it. Scariest shit ever. Not probably what a doctor should be wearing.
But maybe what I'm going to be wearing. My new wardrobe. Anyways, thanks so much for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.